Okay. Testing. Yeah, we're good.
Testing audio 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. And Ben has like radio voices. We just have to.
Yeah, I can be a bit loud.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's fine. Cool. I think we're good. Yeah. So Ben, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you for joining Madhouse episodes. So just to get right into it, who are you and what do you do? In this episode of Madhouse, we speak with Ben Mwine about how he got his start into radio and all the cool and crazy things he has been up to. Enjoy the episode.
I don't know actually. the who I am,
Yeah,
right?
who are you? Like just the listeners know, like, have an idea who Ben Mwine is and what he does.
Yeah, my name is Ben Mwine. I do many things.
Yeah.
Traditionally, I'm a broadcaster. I've
Yeah.
spent a big chunk of my life in the broadcast media,
Yeah.
radio and TV.
Yeah.
But I'm also a media consultant these days.
Yeah.
I'm an events manager. I'm an events host,
Yeah.
or MCing as some people like to call it.
Yeah.
I'm a card dealer. I recently became a gold miner. True story. And then also, of course, on the personal level, the husband, father. I'm supposed to be a pastor. I've been running away from my calling for
A very long time.
like 20 years now. Without too much success, I'm beginning to give in. So yeah.
Son of Pastor Ben is about to arrive.
Hopefully, no titles, but yeah, it's what I'm supposed to be doing actually, just teaching people about God's kingdom and that stuff. So
That's nice.
that's what I like to say is my primary vocation.
Okay.
Everything else is sort of like moonlight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moonlight. Cool. So I'm very interested. How did you get into broadcasting? Was it something you wanted to do as a child, or was it something just early childhood, like early days? I'm very curious about like your early days and how you got
More
into the
like
space.
teenage years.
Okay.
1993, high school. When the first radio stations opened in Uganda,
Yeah.
Capital Radio at the time and Sanyu.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we had never had that sort of access to music. And you listen to these guys on the radio, and they sounded so cool.
Yeah.
And every time you talk to any girl, they'd be going on about, DJ Kantankaras. And there was a guy called DJ Berry at the time who
Yeah.
was one of the guys, and Alex.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, if you're going to get any girls, you want to be on radio. So,
Yeah.
But I've also traditionally been an attention seeker. I don't apologize for it.
Yeah.
Because of my personality, I'm a sanguine through and through. If you know that sort of thing, the personality types, I'm an ENTJ, I think.
Yeah.
Basically an extrovert.
Yeah.
So I love attention.
Sure.
I love being, in people. So
Yeah.
I decided then, in 93, that I was going to do radio, and I sort of worked towards that in every way that I could until I eventually did get a break back in, I think it was 99 when I started out, and the rest is history.
Okay, cool. So what's the first radio you worked on?
I actually started with TV. There's a TV station called Channel TV that was owned by the Madvani Group.
Yeah.
In on the hill in Seguku. That's where the station was.
Yeah.
So I started there as what's called the continuity presenter.
Yeah.
Most people now don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But basically back in the day, you had someone... right now, if you watch TV, there will be a graphic that says up next.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Back then, it was done live.
Okay. So you were the guy saying up
So
next.
they'd become say, coming up, our program lineup today is going to have weather, and then you'll have the news, and then after that...
Yeah.
And it felt really good, so that's why I started.
Okay.
And then went to Radio 1 after that,
Okay.
99. And then went to...
Radio 1 was then government owned? Was it a bit...
No, it's never been government owned. So it's
Which
always
radio
been...
was government owned? I think I confused Radio 1 with
yeah,
another
Radio Uganda. There was Radio Uganda, which was government owned. Still is.
Yeah, okay.
So Radio 1, then Monitor FM, which is now KFM.
Okay.
And then Power FM, and then Sanyu.
Okay. Oh, you did Sanyu?
I did. I was PD at Sanyu.
Okay.
PD's program director.
Yeah.
At Sanyu from 2004 to 7.
Okay.
Then I did a short stint. I did the Big Brother that year as well.
Okay.
And then went back to Power in 2008. And then left in 2011. Went and joined the corporate world for a few years.
Okay.
And then back to KFM to do breakfast in 2014.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's how you do the breakfast show on KFM.
So I ended up doing, then I had to leave that when I took over then I went to Kwese.
Okay.
I went to run Kwese TV.
Yeah.
But I still stayed on radio on the weekends at KFM. So I do this wonderful show called VPN that I love.
What's VPN in full? Is it actual VPN?
You decide what you want it to be. So most people sort of agree on views people news.
Yeah.
But every weekend so one of the things that's actually interesting about the show is that every week I usually try and find something new that VPN stands for based on what's happening that week. So it changes literally every week.
That's a nice challenge for yourself.
I know. Yeah, it can be quite challenging. It's shocking how few words there are that start with the letter V.
Yeah, yeah. That's what like VPN. You're like, what's very few. Yeah, that's interesting. So I'm curious about because this is a Madhouse podcast and it's about creativity and I'm curious about failure and success.
Yeah.
In the whole span of your broadcast, corporate and broadcast, but it seems like you've been dabbling between broadcast and corporate.
Yeah.
The corporate world. I'm curious if you could just share a story of a failure and how you sort of navigated and dealt with it and a lesson learned. Because why I'm asking this is because usually the audience that listens to podcasts are young, creative professionals.
Yeah.
And usually in the business, you're going to fail at something, and usually most people don't know how to deal with oh wait, they just paid me all this money and I have messed it up, or hey, I said this and I failed to deliver on this. But I'm just curious from your experience in what you do, a story where you failed and how you've dealt with it, and also a story where you have won, and how you've also either leveraged that win to do something more interesting, or maybe if you had a win and then slept on it and then something passed and then you're I wish I had capitalized on the win.
I don't know what failure is. I've always succeeded, never failed in my life.
Nice.
I'm kidding.
We now need to write a book right now. Let's organize a book.
That would be quite something. Oh,
it's now going to be a podcast series. How not to fail in life.
Yeah, no, you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
Make no mistakes about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that sort of language is allowed on this podcast, but you're gonna screw up.
Yeah.
And it can be tough.
Yeah.
There's so many stories I don't know where to start. The one that I think would stand out for me, that took me a while to make peace with, was, so as a creative myself, in a way, I like to think of big ideas. I love to think about stuff that's outlandish and out of this world.
Yeah.
And so I usually like to pursue that stuff with everything that is in me, no matter how long it takes.
Yeah.
So one of these particular things was, I worked on a project called the Celtel Africa Challenge.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw that. It was a TV show,
it was a TV
quiz
show.
competition.
Really young.
Yeah. 2007, back in the day.
Yeah.
And I really loved it. I learned a lot of stuff from the guys who were doing the production at the time, the American company.
Yeah.
But then after it sort of ended, when Celtel changed to Zain at the time, I felt to myself, there's got to be a way we can sort of bring this back to life in a way, but now for secondary school students.
Yeah.
I've always loved game shows. I love game shows, and I thought quizzes were really important, and you can use them to do pretty much anything.
Yeah.
And so I spent a few years trying to put this thing together called the National Schools Championship.
Yeah.
If you observe what's going on, you probably have seen it. Stanbic National Schools Championship.
Yeah.
So that was my project. I started that, brought it to life, ran around, tried to get people to buy into it.
Yeah.
And then eventually, Stanbic said, "Hey, this is a good idea. We think we can do something with this."
Yeah.
So get in, do a deal. It was a big deal. It was a massive contract.
Yeah.
We're talking total value eventually would have been 6-figure.
Nice.
USD.
Nice.
Annually.
Oh, wow.
Like double wow. The problem was that because of being a creative, you'll know this very well, it's very easy for you not to have too many things in place, right?
Yeah.
You'll sort of wing it.
Yeah.
Things will find you along the way. You'll sort of figure it out.
Yeah.
Banks don't work that way.
Kind of need systems.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
And not just a lot of them. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And so the honest truth is that I hadn't prepared myself for something that big yet. I'd never done a project that big.
Yeah, because I remember for me at least, I remember I did like the title sequence thing.
You did. You remember,
when you're starting the project.
Yeah, exactly.
Then,
So the honest truth is that I wasn't prepared.
Okay.
Well enough. And what that then meant was that these guys are like, look, we don't think you have the capacity to handle this at this moment.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, at the time, some people over there were not willing to say, look, how can we help?
Yeah.
So that we get this thing done.
Yeah.
Long story short, I had to hand over the project to those guys.
Yeah.
And let it go.
Yeah.
And that was really painful.
Yeah.
That was tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, you move on and then start thinking about other things that you can be able to do. But yeah, so if I was to think about one, that would probably be the one big one that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a big failure for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. And any lessons you learned from that, that you think people could take away that you learned from this story that you're sharing?
Interestingly, it's something that I always tell my people as a business manager. I'm always telling my teams, pay attention to detail, put everything in writing, try and, it's cliche, but dot I's, cross T's.
Yeah.
Think about things that I like to tell people. Think about any questions that can be asked about what you're going to do,
okay.
and then make sure you have the answers beforehand.
Okay.
And so I think that was one of the key lessons. And the other thing was, whenever you're dreaming, have a clear picture of what it is you're dreaming and how it works.
Okay.
And paperwork might be a bitch for a lot of people, especially for creatives. We just hate to do paperwork.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's what will make or break you.
Yeah.
You've got to do that dirty stuff, or at least find someone to do it for you.
Yeah.
But you can't cut corners around that.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the biggest lesson from that.
Yeah. Okay.
Then the other lesson was, you don't have to do everything yourself.
Okay. You can get some people to
get people who can learn how to co-op, people who can help bring your stuff to life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That's nice. A win. I'm curious about the wins. And how you capitalize in the wins and just make your creativity or what you're trying to create better.
Yeah. The wins are many.
Yeah. But maybe one that
the one that I can pick out is probably the one that I'm working on now. That's the most recent. Okay. So about 5 years ago, I realized that we had a big problem as a country in Uganda. Yeah. Where we live, our country, we love it, or at least we're supposed to.
Yeah.
But you get the feeling that the disposition of the average Ugandan towards their country is not very good.
Yeah.
We're bitching and moaning about everything all the time.
Yeah.
You don't hear that much about America or the UK or even places like Kenya.
Yeah, there's a not. Yeah.
They go through the same shit as we do.
Yeah.
They've got the same problems as we do.
Yeah.
But you won't find the average Kenyan bitching and moaning about their country.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, why?
Yeah.
And so I figured there's got to be a way we can try and do something that, one, brings Ugandans together, two, that helps them think about their country in everything that they do and put country first. Literally, the thing that you hear, put your country first. Pledging allegiance to your country.
Yeah.
If we all did that, we wouldn't have corruption in this country.
Yeah, it would be very minimal.
Yeah?
Yeah.
There'll always be corruption, but it wouldn't be at the sort of levels that we have it at right now.
Yeah, very true.
And so, again, as a creative, I thought, what's the best way to do that? The bulk of our population is very young.
Yeah.
What language do they understand?
Yeah.
Entertainment.
Yeah.
So if you can be able to use entertainment as a vehicle to preach this message about patriotism, I know that the government has been trying to do patriotism for a very long time.
Yeah.
With very bad results.
Yeah.
Because of the way they're doing it.
Yeah.
And no offense to them. I know their hearts are in the right place, but the way that's been going.
The execution is really not there yet. You're right.
It's rubbish, if we're to be honest.
Yeah.
So I thought, what can we do? So I started this thing called Panic.
Yeah.
Panic is the Pearl of Africa New Year celebration. I realized that Ugandans and people all over the world really will celebrate New Year.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're sick or broke.
Yeah.
The fact that you're crossing into a new year sort of gives you a certain level of optimism of let's leave this year behind and see what we can do in the next year. Yeah. So you're in a good mood most of the time. Your guard is down in terms of even the people that you hate.
Yeah.
For that one day going into the new year, you'll think, I can't stand Gabe, but hey, it's New Year, so Happy New Year, man.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think that's a really good opportunity for us to gather together as a country, because at that point there's no regional politics or tribe or anything along those lines. It's just one group of people crossing from one phase of their life to another.
Yeah.
So we started this thing called Pearl of Africa New Year Celebration.
Yeah.
We did the initial one in 2020, which was last year in the middle of COVID, which was actually perfect for us because no one was going anywhere. Yeah. There were no events happening. Yeah. And so we did this great, it's a concert that sort of builds up, a countdown that builds up into the new year. Yeah. We did it on, I think, about 7 or 8 TV stations at the same time.
Nice.
Probably, apart from the president's messages, it's one of the few times when you'll have many different TV stations doing the same thing. Yeah. But what I liked about it was how all these media houses sort of said, we like this idea. Yeah. Let's do it together. Yeah. So you've got one stage, 4 stages really. Yeah. But you've got different media personalities from different media houses. Yeah. Putting the differences aside and say, let's celebrate Uganda. Yeah. And I've been so excited to see what that's looked like, and I can't wait to see what 2021 is going to be for that. So that would be the big win. And the key lesson from there has been, as a creative, as a person who has dreams and visions, hold on to your thing. Yeah. You don't let it go. I've been trying to put these things together it's taken 2015 to 2020 is 5 years, 6 years actually. Yeah,
to try to make it happen.
And so it eventually did. Yeah. And so you don't let go of, if you believe in something and think that it's going to be has potential to do something. Stick with it. You go for it. It might take forever, but
just
somewhere along the way, something a break is bound to happen for you.
That's awesome. I'm now that you mentioned like all these things, I'm very curious about like your work processing, like in terms of like where's your mind usually when you're making some of these things happen? Like, is it very like from in out, or is it from out? Like, is like do you need a lot of things around you to be happening properly to keep going, or are you like, even if things around are like going south, we just keep going? I'm very curious to find out, because seems some of the stuff you're doing is really hard, or some of the stuff you're really doing is there are a lot of other things in play.
Moving parts,
and I'm very curious to find out how you are dealing with it from a psychological sort of point of view.
That's a very good question. I think big picture. So one, as a bit of a visionary, as a person who is a leader, I guess I've always been trained from the get-go to always have your eye on the big picture. Okay. So if you know where you're going and why you need to get there and why it's important for you to get there, you will do everything you can to get there. I'll never forget the story I had once about a guy. I think a guy was preaching, and he was talking about how if you are being chased by a lion, and for whatever reason you end up falling into a ditch or whatever, with a broken arm, maybe half your foot has been cut off or something, what do you do? Do you lie down and say, oh well, it's done, it's okay, might as well just let the lion come and have his dinner, right? Yeah. No. You will fight with everything in your being, even if it's to move an extra inch further away from the lion, right? Yeah. And I think the same applies to everything that we do. Yeah. In your life, in your work. The most important thing is to have some sort of idea of what your end goal is. Yep. What am I aspiring to? Yep. Where am I? Where am I trying to head to? Yeah. And then everything in between just becomes a bump or a hump, or if you're driving to anywhere in Kampala, you're going to encounter potholes. Yeah. Some of them are bad that you feel your suspension is staying in the pothole. Yeah. But you're not stopping, you're gonna go. Yeah. So you find ways of navigating around whatever challenges and obstacles you're gonna find along the way. And for me, I think that by being able to focus on that, it usually ends up putting things in perspective. Okay. And sort of helps nudge you to go in the direction that you need to go. Okay. Okay. That's very
cool. One last thing. This is the last thing in the episode. Usually, every podcast ask the guest one life lesson. if we're bored, everyone, for like the past like 20 minutes,
Yeah.
but like those guys will skip podcasts.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
I just got to the summary, right?
Yeah. Those who, one life lesson that you as Ben Mwine has learned, and like you say, hey, if anything you want to like apply, whether the listener is a creative professional or whether just enjoying life or doing whatever they want to do in their life, but the life lesson you think they can apply in their life and like do, would be like share something or share a few things. It may not be one thing, it could just be a couple of things.
There's a lot. I would say, from me, my personal perspective, number one, try and get an understanding of who you are and why you are.
Yeah, okay.
I'm
like self-awareness in a sense?
Yes, but for me, I actually like to look at that even from a spiritual perspective.
Okay.
I'm a Christian. I believe I believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think that if you don't have a very good understanding of why God put you on this planet, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to struggle.
Okay.
Especially for creatives now, for people like us. Yeah. You might succeed at doing everything else, but if you don't have that fulfillment of purpose of knowing what you're supposed to be doing, that's going to be tough.
Okay.
And especially for those who are younger, it gives you an opportunity to try and figure out what the hell is that.
Yeah.
It's better for you to do it early enough.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone yesterday who has got one of the biggest jobs in the country, well, the world, to be honest.
Yeah.
And one of the things that stood out for me from what they were saying is how they're at a point where they don't need money.
Yeah.
They don't have to have, they've got a very good salary. They're earning huge amounts of money. But they feel trapped in a way because they sort of never figured out who they were.
Yeah.
And ended up just sort of chasing this whole thing of, job to another. They're very busy because, again, as you go higher, the stress increases and then it becomes a trap in its own way. Yeah. So you're a slave to what you're doing. Yeah. But the guy saying, look, Ben, I'm not happy. Yeah. Right? Yeah. People look at me and think, oh, that guy, man, if I could be him for a day. Yeah. And he's there thinking, what the hell am I doing with my life? Yeah. And that really, really shook me and woke me up. Yeah. That a lot of our attention many times is on the wrong things. Okay. And again, if you look at it from the perspective of creatives especially, it's no secret that the average creative doesn't give a monkey's behind about money, right? Usually it's about the passion. Yeah. That's changing a little bit. It's becoming a lot more commercial. Yeah. And that's a big problem because you start chasing the money and then eventually you lose
the goal
and who you're supposed to be. And I think that for me, I would advise anyone, try and make sure you know who you are and why you are. Yeah. And then the second thing which I have found to be very useful for me as a person is finding peace with yourself, with your level. Okay. I'll expand for a moment. Mm. Again, we live in a world that has sort of tried to set standards for how we live. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Gabe has got to be like this. At this age, you've got to do this. Yeah. At 30, you must have done this. Yeah. At 35, you must have done this. Yeah. At 40, you must have done this. Yeah. And if that doesn't happen, you're a failure. Yeah. What are you up to? Yeah. And it's not fair. Yeah. Because we are each walking our lane. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And the mistake that I think a lot of people are making these days is that they try to live in a lane that's not theirs, number one. Okay. But then number two is that even in their lane, if they are in their lane, they are too obsessed with what's happening in other people's lane.
They're not on their lane.
To focus on their lane. Yeah. But also too focused on trying to get other people to pay attention to their lane. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you discover that it's an exercise in futility. It leads to frustration and depression, and it's just not worth it. So I would say find peace with who you are and where you are. Okay. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. It always ends in tears.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, very true. I mean, especially like when you say like I've seen like lots of like young creative professionals trying to compare themselves with like other people, and then you're like, hey, that filmmaker, or like that filmmaker is that filmmaker. Like you be your filmmaker, but like you don't have to be like him, or you acquire the same tools he uses. You're like you use a phone. You don't have to.
I know, right?
You don't have to use a big fancy camera or whatever it is. But like I see what you're saying. That's awesome. So thank you so much for your time. We've come to the end of this podcast.
No, that's all. Pleasure. Thanks a lot for having me.
We shall do more. I think we shall, since you said you've never failed, we shall do that podcast. How not to fail.
Yeah, how not to fail.
And then it's just like, and the whole episode is just about failure.
I know.
I guess be like, what? You say it's about how not to fail. Yeah, but thank you. Thank you so much for making some time to come through. Awesome. Yeah, let me stop recording this.